talking about creation, it sounds like a fairy tale because it's so different from anything that from the life you have today. And think about it, that was 20 billion years ago. I mean, that's 20 billion years ago is an eternity. You can't even imagine how long ago that was. Now, modern science says that the first 5 elements, that would be hydrogen, I don't have a pointer, hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, and boron. Now, modern science says that they were in existence 20 billion years ago. So now, ancient myths talk about the people of light, etc. Now, they're saying that these were people, or not necessarily people, let's say intelligences. They were beings, you can't call them people, were in existence 20 billion years ago, but they don't know when they came about. They could have been around forever. I mean, you don't know how long they were hanging around. So let's say they've been here eternally. And that's what the primal creators are. Life is eternal. So these were the primal creators, like the supreme creators. Okay, now, the first primal element of hydrogen, they had made all possible combinations. They had just used everything they could. They could make over, let's say, they wanted new creations. So hydrogen, that first hydrogen, the primal atom, created carbon, atomic number 6, from the dark nothingness of the cosmos. Now, carbon forms strong covalent bonds, which means that it shares electrons with other chemical atoms. So, in other words, you have forces of nothingness. That's what hydrogen made carbon from nothingness, versus forces of light. That's the other chemical elements. So you have forces of darkness versus forces of light. And that's what you hear and read in all of the myths, ancient myths. They talk about the sons of light and the sons of darkness. You'll see that in the Bible. So now, pure carbon exists in 3 forms that differ only in the arrangement of the carbon atoms. There's carbon black, there's graphite, and there's diamond. Now, carbon black is an amorphous form of carbon. It's just random carbon atoms there. So they're called carbon black. So amorphous carbon has a random structure with no organization and no arrangement. Soot, charcoal, coal, coke, petroleum, natural gas, and limestone are examples of carbon black. Now, hydrogen, helium, lithium, and beryllium, or all the intelligences, used all the carbon black they could. They made all possible arrangements. Now, when they did that, they used up what was here, let's say the loose carbon. And then they got to another layer of carbon, and that was graphite. And this is the structure of graphite. It has a little more structures arranged in layers. Now, graphite is soft and slippery. It's used as a lubricant. You use it in the lead of your pencils. It's used in paint. So the people used all of the graphite, or let's say the intelligences used all the graphite. They made all kinds of compounds, everything. They used it, carbon for everything. Well, carbon is present in all life forms. And more of the compounds, carbon makes more compounds than all the elements combined. Anything that's living has carbon in it. So after they used up everything, there was nothing left. And there was only one other kind of carbon there, and that was the diamond shield. Now, diamond has a rigid structure. Diamond is the hardest substance known. There's absolutely nothing harder than diamond. Now, these people, or intelligences, were surrounded by a diamond shield. They had, if you read, I think it's Proverbs 8:22, says that everything existed in the mind of God before creation began. And Dogon people of Africa said the same thing. So that was one of their myths and legends. So the whole thing was how to get out of this, how to expand creation. They're enclosed in a diamond shell. Now, diamond is the hardest thing known. It has no electrical charge and it doesn't react with other chemical atoms. It's the best conductor of heat, but it will melt at 6,420 degrees Fahrenheit, or 3,550 degrees centigrade. So what were they going to do? They're enclosed in this diamond shield, sphere, inside there. How can they expand creation? So now, let's look at the melting points of these first 10 elements. Now, hydrogen has a melting point of minus 259.2 degrees centigrade, or minus 434.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, helium has no melting point. It's a gas. It doesn't melt. Okay, then you have lithium, beryllium, and boron. Now, it's this hydrogen with helium acting as a shield penetrated lithium, beryllium, and boron. And during that time, heat and pressure was building up. And then it broke through that carbon or that diamond sphere. And that was the Big Bang of 14.7 billion years ago. And that's what creation expanded. Remember, they said that everything was in the mind of God. So everything expanded. It was already known. Now, when the diamond sphere was broken or shattered, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, and neon formed. And that was a release and cool down period. And you think of this, all this heat, and that's what makes atoms move, or particles move real fast. And these formed. Then there was a cool down period. So you can say that creation started with the breaking of that diamond sphere and the release of everything that was inside. Now, so you can say that all life is formed by forces of light and forces of nothingness, which would be the carbon. And light is a heritage of those primal intelligences. That's what you get from them. And what you have to do is bring forth that light or the heritage of those intelligences through the darkness or the nothingness. In other words, you have to see where you came from. Now, over the next 10.1 billion years, the primeval atom evolved and grew into a sun by interaction with itself to form the 7 categories of chemical elements that are over there listed on the periodic chart. Now, modern science states that the first stars formed 10.2 billion years ago, which implies that they formed as the new chemical elements and new interacted with carbon to form new compounds. Lead, atomic number 82 down here, right here, is the last naturally forming chemical element. And when I say naturally, I mean that it formed within the core of the sun. Now, all elements that are heavier than lead are radioactive products of chemical element disintegration, which means they formed outside of the sun. Now, mostly, you can almost say most of these that are above 81, have atomic numbers above 82, are lighter than lead. Some of them may be heavier due to neutrons, but most of them aren't. So now, you know that lead is a soft, silvery, white, grayish metal. It's one of the densest, heaviest and densest of the common metals. It weighs 0.4092 pounds per cubic foot. Lead is a poor conductor of heat and electricity because lead absorbs short wavelengths of light and sound. They use lead sheets in the walls of big buildings and to absorb the noise and everything. They use lead in X-ray equipment and to shield nuclear reactors. And when children eat little chips of lead-based paint, the lead has a cumulative effect, and it can concentrate and it can cause a form of mental retardation. Now, the hot gases that radiated out from the Big Bang, or rupture of the carbon diamond sphere, began to cool around 4.6 billion years ago. Around 4.6 billion years ago, the hot gases that radiated outward, let's say they came out from the sun, they began to cool. And as they began to cool, the heavier elements like iodine, xenon, and lead, they slowed and they began to fall back or condense into the next wave of hot elements coming. And pretty soon, all the intelligences were again enclosed by a sphere. This time it was a sphere of lead. Now, modern science states that the sun began radiating into lead and penetrated it around 4.5 billion years ago. Now, lead, atomic number 82, is heavier, denser, and slower than the 81 other chemical elements that expanded first. When solar radiations of hydrogen penetrated lead, the other, hold on, this one, let's see. When they penetrated lead, we're through with this one, okay, this one over here. Get rid of that one. When they penetrated lead, the other heavy metals sank downward and compacted, and the Earth, planets, and meteors began forming. Now, modern science says that the Earth's inner core consists of 0.3% copper, atomic number 29. I want you to notice the atomic numbers. Then 4% nickel, atomic number 28, 2% cobalt, atomic number 27, and 95% iron, atomic number 26. So in other words, they just fell right into, when lead was penetrated, they just collapsed right in and formed the Earth's inner core. Now the ferroferric oxide contains iron atoms with 2+ and 3+ charges. Now it's that alternating charge within the core of the Earth that gives the Earth magnetic properties. Now meteors, planets, and the Earth is a planet, but meteors, the Earth, and the other planets formed at the same time, 4.5 billion years ago.